Howdy, it's Jim Murado, and this is late October 2022, and we're actually in Tunnel Hill, Georgia, at the Tunnel Hill Heritage Center and Museum. If you're watching the video, in the first 4 minutes we're going to run through the museum real quick and just give you a rough idea of what they've got here. There are actually some Holy Grail pieces here if you look closely. It's a small museum, but it is great and it is packed. But, again, after about 4 minutes, we're going to go on a tour with Dave. He's going to drive us around on a tram around this property, and we are going to see some incredible Civil War history. In fact, this might be my favorite Civil War site, period. And I've been to some great places, but for $12, you get to see this museum, and they drive you around on a little tram for about an hour and give you one heck of a tour. $12. Think about that. 1 hour. That's not worth Dave's time. Gas and wear on their little tram. They're not making money off of that. Even if they have more people on the tour, they're not getting rich off of this. These are people that care about history, and they've set up a cool museum and something very cool. We're gonna go through a tunnel that was part of the Great Locomotive Chase with the General. You're gonna see some really cool stuff. There's also a house that was a Confederate hospital, forever associated with John Bell Hood, and also it was Sherman's headquarters at one point. And we're also going to see the burial site of Hood's leg. Not to mention flags, bullets, cannonballs. This is just a great tour. We actually came to Dalton. I was thinking about doing a driving tour through this area and just kind of doing things on my own terms. But I found a brochure for this place. I'd heard about it. It sounded okay. We got here and we ended up, hanging out at the museum, doing the tour. This was a great use of our time. And just a great place. They have a cute little gift shop too. I bought, for $4, they sold me a book, a driving tour book on Dalton, with a CD and a map. Again, they're not out to make money, they're out to promote history. This place gets my highest possible recommendation. And if I were a young person or someone just starting to become interested in the Civil War, this would be a phenomenal first stop on a Civil War tour. If you're looking for a cool place to go and just see what's there, here you go. Tunnel Hill, Georgia. Yeah, I can't say enough about it. Again, we'll meet Dave here in a moment, who you could tell just had a real love of history and really put his heart into this. And we admire what they're doing here. And we had just seen the General in Marietta, and I'll put up, if I haven't already, I'll put up another video about that. And we did a lot of Civil War stuff in this area, as we've done before. This is just an incredible, you could spend months checking out Civil War sites here. But if you do, make Tunnel Hill your first stop. You're going to get a lot for your money, and this is a great use of time.
It's a beautiful day.
Yes, very nice.
This isn't an authentic Sherman necktie, is it?
The one closest to us is.
Ooh, okay.
Now Sherman's neckties get a little more involved, which I'll talk about. But the one closest to us was bent during the Civil War and was thrown in a creek south of Dalton, Georgia. Now, of course, they would stack the ties as we have, prop the rails like the two in the back, set the cross ties on fire. The fire would soften the iron, the weight of the rail in the air would bend, would sag down, bending the rail. So that's how they bent them. Now Sherman's men, as they march on Atlanta and Savannah, they will go a few steps farther. While the rail is still warm in the middle, men will take both ends and twist the rail and then wrap it around itself or around trees and telegraph poles. And those could not be straightened out. One bent like this could be run through a rolling mill, straightened out and reused. So Sherman's men go the step farther where it cannot be straightened out. And that's what they start calling Sherman's neckties or Mrs. Lincoln's hairpins.
Nice.
Now our depot up to the right was built between 1848 and 1850. The stonework in the walls is original. Everything else is new as of last summer. The city restored the depot last summer, made it a community center and a venue that can be rented.
Oh, wow.
But we were real glad to see it get restored.
Yes.
Now our railroad here was originally the Western and Atlantic Railroad Company, built by the state of Georgia. Georgia builds the railroad to connect what will become Atlanta on the Chattahoochee River with Chattanooga and the Tennessee River. The Tennessee River connects to the Cumberland, Ohio, Missouri, and the Mississippi rivers. So goods and produce from all over North Georgia would be hauled by rail up to Chattanooga, could be placed on riverboat traffic on the Tennessee River, and transported by water to almost any location in the U.S. at that time. I think we can make it. Now the stonework on my left is the original 1848 trestle or bridge support crossing Tanyard Creek. There are 350 stones quarried and hand carved at Rocky Face Ridge, 3 miles south of here, hauled here and assembled. Now originally there would have been a wooden bridge over the stonework, and the track bed originally runs right here. You can kind of tell.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now in 1928 the railroad builds a larger tunnel, and when they build that larger tunnel they shift the track to the left and build the steel and concrete bridge that we have there. And it is still in use by the railroad today. I hear them say something about the turtle. Yeah, there's been a big turtle down there, and
yeah, I saw him over there. I tried to catch him, but I tried to catch him, but he never did it.
and be careful. One day this week there was a long brown snake in the creek.
Ooh.
Whoa!
Now the covered bridge is not as old as it looks. It was built in 1987.
Oh.
I think they did a good job making it look like an old covered bridge.
It looks great.
Now the Austin House that will be part of our tour, there's your first glimpse of it. Built in 1848, we'll talk about that in the house. Originally when built they have 120 acres of land. Over time they will add an additional 200 acres for a total of 320 acres of land. And today our museum has 87 of the original acres.
That's great.
Coming up on my right, some old farm equipment
Oh yeah.
and a water cannon from the 1880s, 1890s,
Oh wow.
used by fire departments
Yeah.
to fight fires.
You know whose bag's still buried out here?
Up behind the mailboxes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Black walnut trees all over the property. We've had a good crop this year.
Do you do anything with those?
Now some local folks come and they haven't picked up very many this year.
Do the local wildlife squirrels?
Yes, squirrels, chipmunks, enjoy them. Of course, the black walnut is inside the green hull, so you would have to peel that off or wait for it to decay to get to the walnut.
That's when I was a kid. One of the sweet ice cream flavors in our neck of the woods was black walnut.
Black walnut.
Yeah. And it was very good.
I apologize. I had a path cleared earlier, but I think our mower has scattered that.
Adds to the authenticity. It's okay.
Just try not to step on one.
Yeah.
Now out front we have a spring house. Still a spring underneath it. That would be their drinking water, their bathing water source. And the spring house is kind of their refrigerator back before electricity. Stays cooler inside, and so they would keep dairy products, milk, cheese, butter, eggs, other things like that in the spring house. Now before we go inside, I like to point out over the years, 6 different families have owned the property. So over time they added indoor plumbing, running water, electricity, and heat and air system.
Oh wow.
So we'll gather in the living room. The majority of floors and ceilings are original. The next to the last owner, a Mr. Godfrey, added the columns and the beams. The second floor was sagging, and he braced it up.
Actually looks good.
He did it.
Yeah.
I like the way he did it. To me, it fits in with the architect
Yes.
of the house in the room. Union General William Tecumseh Sherman, fighting for the North, comes to Tunnel Hill on May 7th, 1864, and occupies this house for 6 days, using it as his military headquarters. Sherman has advanced from Chattanooga, starting his march on Atlanta, Georgia, stops here, has with him 3 armies under his command. And in those 3 armies is just under 100,000 men. 98,000 and some odd 100 men. Some of them will camp in this area. Most of them will be on the front lines facing the Confederates. The Confederates that he's fighting, they are on Rocky Face Ridge and Dug Gap, which surrounds Dalton. And their camps and their headquarters are in Dalton, Georgia. So in our house, Sherman and his 3 generals will plan how they're going to advance against the Confederates on Rocky Face Ridge and in Dalton. But also in the living room, Sherman will study maps, mapping out routes from here to Atlanta. His objective, of course, is to capture Atlanta, Georgia. And some of those plans are made here in our living room.
He really didn't do much to Atlanta, though, did he? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, man, not too much. Hood started it and he finished it.
Oh, wow.
And a lot on that note, a lot of people nowadays say, oh no, Hood burned Atlanta. No, Hood burned the rail yard and the factories and the ammunition train. Sherman came in and stayed until early November, so there's some town left.
Yes.
And when he leaves, he finishes
Yeah.
burning what's left, or the majority of it. But yeah, and mention Sherman in parts of Georgia today, you'll still get a scowl.
Yes. Which is understandable.
Oh yeah, his march to the sea, yes. Now before Sherman arrives, November 1862 until late November 1863, when Chattanooga finally falls and they abandon this area, the house is used as a Confederate hospital for a period of 1 year. And we'll talk about that in the next rooms. Now, a little house history. This would have been the dining room. The next room we'll go in shortly was food preparation. The kitchen was a separate building, and that was the custom back then. Didn't want to heat up the house with cooking, and the cooking fire could sometimes get out of hand, burn down the house. So the kitchen was always a separate building. Kate Cummings, Civil War nurse for the South, from Mobile, Alabama. She will serve at hospitals in Corinth, Mississippi after the Battle of Shiloh. She will serve 3 hospitals up in Chattanooga and our Tunnel Hill Hospital, which is the house here. Kate kept a very detailed journal, and 1 year after the war ended, her journal was published into a book. And she wrote in her journal, when we arrived at Tunnel Hill, the hospital complex had so many buildings, it looked like its own little village. So between the house and the track, they had constructed a bakery, a bathhouse, a laundry house, and some quarters for the doctors and nurses. And surprising for the Civil War period, when this area is abandoned, they disassembled those buildings, loaded them on train cars, took them to Dalton, and reassembled them for the Dalton Hospital. So that's very unusual for that time period, and I would like to know more about those structures.
Yes. I was about to ask.
What were they?
Yeah.
That they can take them apart. Maybe parts of it is tent. I know I've seen photos of winter quarters where they would use a tent, and the tent basically becomes the roof, and then they build up sides for the building. So it may have been something like that they could easily take apart and move.
Now, when this house was being used as hospital that year, the family that owned
had already gone.
They had relocated.
We'll talk a little more about them upstairs, but since you asked, the original family, the Austins, Clisby Austin and his family, they sell the house in July 1862. So a year into the war, they sell the house to a doctor from Augusta. But he does not live in the house. He mainly wants the acreage to farm or have it farmed. So my understanding is the house is already vacant.
Okay.
And the floor is obviously, I mean, it's...
This floor is not original, yes. And I hate to tell this, I learned this earlier this year. This floor was put down by one of the later residents to cover the blood stains from the hospital.
Yes.
As bad as that is, though, I could have blood stains to show today.
Well, the blood stains add to the story when
Yes. Yeah. So some surgeries were done in this room.
Oh, wow.
A lot of the surgeries would have been amputations, removing arms and limbs. So we got a surgery set up. Our understanding is, as they were removing limbs in this room, as surgeries were going on, they don't want to stop the surgeries. They toss the limb out the window into the yard, and then they would bury those when the last surgery was finished. And so I've heard that from other houses that have been hospitals. So that's a standard practice. Don't want to stop between surgeries to take care of each limb one by one. I hope you saw some bullets in the museum under glass.
Oh, I didn't get around. We'll have to
Do the museum when we get back.
Yes.
I've got two different types, and I have a unfired and a fired version of each. So I'm going to talk about these because this becomes the standard bullet. Of course, as the war goes on, they get more and more rifled muskets. The rifling makes it more accurate and gives it a greater distance. So this is the standard bullet for the rifled muskets. And this is that same bullet after it hits the target. The only comparison is you can see the bottom
Yeah.
and tell, yes, that is this. And in this one, you can see a little bit of the rings.
Right.
So soft lead, when they hit the target, it becomes this. So think about your limb.
Yeah.
That's going to fracture bone, shatter bone. If it passes through, take bits of bone out. Back then, no repairing that, no rods, no plates. And they're concerned about gangrene infection. If that, more often than not, gangrene does get in the wound. If that gets in the blood system, the soldier has no hope, he's gone. So they would amputate using the bone saw.
It looks so flimsy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And this is an actual surgeon's kit from the Civil War. Now, our hospital being here for a year, they would actually start, because they have more time, they would actually start with a scaffold, one of these, and make an incision almost to the bone before using the bone saw. But when and where they are doing surgeries on the battlefield and they're more pressed for time, they just start out with the bone saw and through flesh and bone. And I have read a well-trained surgeon can remove an arm or a leg in 30 to 40 seconds.
You'd have to do it quick.
Yes, which is probably still pretty long for the patient,
Yes,
but that's pretty quick.
Oh.
Now, often they would have chloroform or ether as their anesthetics. In absence of that, whiskey and the old saying, bite the bullet, goes back to the Civil War. They would have the patient bite on a lead bullet while they operated. So pretty gruesome.
Yeah. Did you find those bullets yourself?
Couple of these were in the old general store, and these two I found, the unfired ones I found myself.
That's cool.
In the general vicinity, Chattanooga, Ringgold,
Yes.
because they're fighting all over this,
Yeah.
all over this area. Now, before we go upstairs, check out the original steps and look at the wear,
Yeah.
where everybody's gone up and down.
Yes.
I'm not sure which owner, but one of the later owners wanted to replace those.
Oh,
And the repairman that he called in to do that talked him out of it and said, this is history. So we're glad that he got talked out of that.
absolutely, yes. Oh, they look even from this angle. It's
Yes.
You can see it.
yeah.
Now, I like to point out, if you catch a modern bathroom and any closets that you see, those are added much later. So the upstairs rooms are originally larger than they are today. Confederate General John Bell Hood from Kentucky attends West Point, graduates 1853. 8 years before the war, he's assigned duty in Texas, which at that time was considered the frontier. And he falls in love with Texas and decides he's a Texan. When the Civil War comes, he will lead Texas troops for the South. First under Lee in Virginia, it's known as Hood's Texas Brigade. So he's commanding a brigade. Wounded in the left arm at Gettysburg, but it doesn't affect the bone, so they do not amputate. But he does not have a lot of mobility with the arm after that. In the fall of 1863, by then Hood is commanding a division. His division and the corps that he is in under James Longstreet, they will come from Virginia by rail to Georgia and fight the 3-day Battle of Chickamauga, Georgia. If we could go in a straight line, it's about 12 to 14 miles northwest of us. So on the third day, Hood is leading a charge against Union troops. On Snodgrass Hill, he's hit in the right leg by one of those bullets, fractures his femur bone in 5 places. They amputate on the battlefield at the Reed Cabin, and then when he's able, they bring Hood to this hospital, and Hood stays in this room. Now, odd part of that story, they bring his amputated leg with him. They kind of embalm the leg, whatever method they used back then, and they wrap the leg in linen cloth and bring it with General Hood to the hospital. Why do they do that? The surgeons know amputating the leg at the hip joint, and that's where they remove Hood's leg, 15% survival rate. So flip that, 85% chance of dying. Hood is going to die. Hood is a general, and we will bury him and his leg together. That's the doctor's thoughts. But Hood survives here, beats the odds, and when they realize Hood is going to make it, they bury his leg on the property. And we might see that burial site later in the tour. Now from here, they will take Hood by train to Atlanta, and then back to Richmond, Virginia, and Hood will get an artificial leg made of cork and wood, and he will have his photo made in Richmond. And this is a copy of that photo. So in the photo, the right leg, that's his new cork and wood artificial leg. But he still has to use crutches.
Yeah, talk about a tough guy.
And tough. I would have been done.
Yeah.
When he's able, he rejoins the army in Dalton.
Yes.
Fights all the battles between Dalton and Atlanta, fights Sherman for Atlanta, goes up into Tennessee, fights at Franklin and Nashville.
And I always thought at that point, it's almost like they put him in knowing he couldn't win, and he still scraped together way better than you would have thought somebody, especially in his situation.
Yeah, in his situation. As his men have to lift him up onto the horse. Yeah. I like to point out the indoor facilities.
Well, I assume the bed's not original?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's we have one original piece downstairs. As we go back out, I'll point that out to you. But everything else has been acquired or donated. Couple more rooms to check out. Porch on front and back. Third story, later just used as an attic, originally 2 rooms. One large room over each half of the house. Again, any closet is added later. Of course, this would have been their closet. Clisby Austin is from Upper East Tennessee. He moves here in 1846 and builds this house in 1848. Has the original 120 acres with the property, with the house. Quite the businessman, quite the town planner for Tunnel Hill. He will build a Methodist church for the town, be its minister until they find a permanent one, which is just a matter of months. He's a Mason. He will build a Masonic lodge. He and his 2 older sons will have a general store in town known as Austin and Sons. And when they open it, they have $2,500 worth of merchandise. So for that time period, 1850s, that's going to be a pretty good supplied store. He will also at some point run a railroad hotel up near the depot. Again, he will sell the property in July 1862 to a doctor from Augusta, and he will move back to Upper East Tennessee. Some of his grown married children will stay in the area, but he will go back to Upper East Tennessee, where he will have today what is the Rogersville, Tennessee area. I don't know if he'll go near that going back.
I don't know.
But anyway, back there he will have 2 grist mills and a railroad hotel there. And during the war he will make and sell shoe pegs to the Confederate government. So quite the businessman. And a good picture of Mr. Austin on the wall. He will live until July of 1883.
And when did you say this house was last occupied?
Someone last lived in the house in 2011.
Oh, wow. Well,
So
just the other day.
11 years ago.
Yeah.
What year was it built?
1848.
Okay.
And originally just another bedroom. We've made it a sewing room. Sewing machine is foot operated. The loom, the spinning wheel. Interesting story that I learned. Now for the most part the families are large so that the children can help out with the chores. As the children grow, they would get, especially the girls would get a primary job inside the house. Boys probably work the land. The oldest daughter of the family was taught to work the spinning wheel. Now for the most part they married young back then, maybe as young as 15 or 16. So let's say our oldest daughter that's working the spinning wheel, let's say she's 20 or 21 and hasn't married. Ooh, folks start calling her an old spinster. So that's where that old saying comes from. Oh, she's just an old spinster still at home working the spinning wheel. And the couch became known as the fainting couch. So the ladies are wearing all the corsets, all the petticoats and the corset to make their waist appear small, which also pulls in their lungs. And on hot, humid days, they called it the vapors, and they would pass out. And somebody would bring them to the couch to recover. And it began being called the fainting couch. And last item, our telephone from the 1880s. And this is an actual 1881 telephone directory.
Oh.
A to W on that one sheet.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the desk Sherman is at is not his desk, but this is a Civil War field desk like Sherman would have had. And then this is our original piece of furniture. This belonged to the Austin family. When they moved, they took it with them. But years later, when the house was donated to the county and the Austin family learned of that, they returned this
Oh, wow.
and donated it to sit in the house.
That's beautiful.
Hate that it's cracked, but it is still very good shape.
Yeah. I just gives it a little character.
Yes. So that is our
Wow.
Austin house.
Well, that was more spectacular than I even thought it would
All
be.
right,
Yeah.
good.
And I love the soldiers out front too. They
This was a carriage house where they kept the carriage. To the other side of it, there is a corn crib where they dried corn. This was a small blacksmith shop and workshop. So originally they would have also had the kitchen out not too far from the main house. Would have had a smokehouse for smoking meat. And originally next to the blacksmith shop was the barn location. Cattle gate.
yes.
Of course, normally this would be closed and this kept the cows out of the front yard. Tomorrow night we are having a moonlight and moonshine event.
Oh, don't
We
tell
have
us
a-
that. We need to.
We have a bluegrass band, we'll have a dinner, and we'll have moonshine sampling.
Oh,
That will be here, so that's why we've got the lights up and
Okay.
getting ready for that. Porta-john,
yes.
just in case.
Oh, let me get on the other side here. I'm sorry. Oh, it's a. You know, the older I get, the more I appreciate seeing a train go by.
Yeah.
It's, especially here right now. You know, we did see the general in Kennesaw when we were.
All right.
Yeah. Oh wow.
General Hood's way.
Well, you mind if I get a quick picture of that?
Now this may be a silly question, but I'll ask it anyway. Your weather here in this part of Georgia in the winter, is it cold? Do you get snow?
It can get very cold. The conditions, because of all the mountains, especially between Nashville and Chattanooga, the fronts have to come just right for us to get snow. If it snows in Memphis and Nashville and comes straight across Tennessee, we will not get it. If it snows in Huntsville and comes up that direction, we get heavy snows.
Really?
So we have to get moisture from the Gulf with a cold front coming across.
Okay.
I'm going to make a little loop. The 1928 tunnel is the other side of the fence. So it's still in use by the railroad today.
Yeah.
So by the early 1900s, the trains are much larger than they were when this tunnel is built. And those larger trains are damaging the original tunnel and damaging the train engines and cars. And so the railroad builds a larger tunnel, opens December 1928, and they abandon this tunnel. Now this tunnel construction started in July of 1848. There are two work crews, Irish immigrants, and they start from both ends of the mountain and they dig toward each other. And they will meet on October 31st, 1849. And then they have to finish a few things, lay the track. The first trains use the tunnel on May the 9th, 1850. So, from start of digging to trains using the tunnel, 22-month period. Very impressive for that time that they build this in 22 months. Now the tunnel is 1,477 feet long, just over a quarter of a mile. The crew that starts working at this end, they will have the hardest work. I'll talk about that shortly. This crew will dig out 575 feet of tunnel. The crew that starts at the other end of the mountain, digging toward us, they will dig out 902 feet of tunnel. The stone walls are 4 foot thick, brick ceiling, and where we have brick wall, that is 2 feet thick. And as we go in on both sides, you will see damage from the larger train cars, where they were knocking brick out of the ceiling. And then these areas, what I call the fake brick.
Yeah.
So the tunnel is restored in the early 2000s. Tunnel is restored by the town, and they fill in concrete and paint it kind of reddish and carve the little brick design.
Oh, yeah.
But these areas, just about all the brick would have been knocked out. So you can tell
Yeah.
where they've meshed that in together. Especially as we come back through, you can kind of notice a white line down the top of the tunnel.
Yes.
That's from steam from the steam engines.
Oh, wow.
And the darker spots are smoke stains from the smokestacks. This is a safety pocket.
Oh, yeah.
There are 8 in the tunnel. 6 are this size. 2 are about 2 or 3 times wider. So, railroad workers and town folks, local folks, would walk through the tunnel between trains. It was easier to walk the tunnel than to walk over the mountain. And so if you were in the tunnel for any reason and a train entered, you want to get in a safety pocket.
Yeah.
The train tracks took up our cart path width. So where we have this drainage system today, that's the area you would have had between you and the train. And the old-timey trains on the old track rocked So you really wouldn't want to be standing there. Now the crew working this end, they are encountering large boulders, and this is what's left of one. It would have been out farther. So they've got to remove that rock. They're using picks, chisels, and the two-man hand drill. So there's a drill mark. There's a drill mark right there. One down there. So with the two-man hand drill, one man's holding it, often over his shoulder. It has a bit on the end. Another man is hitting it with a hammer. And every time it's struck, they rotate it one turn.
Yeah.
And that is removing the rock slowly. But mainly what they're doing is they're drilling these long holes, and they will pack that with black powder, light that with a fuse, and blast the rock. Dynamite is 20 years away, so they are using black powder and fuses, which is really more dangerous than a stick of dynamite. Now they do not get far, and they hit a bigger rock, bigger boulder. As we go along, look for the drill marks.
Yeah.
Too many to stop at.
Yeah.
Note, this rock in this area comes all the way over and back into the wall. So they've got to clear this. We like to call this our best drill mark.
Oh, wow. That's something.
So that gives you an idea of
Yeah.
the size of the hand drill. Excuse me. Now I find this interesting. They get to the end of this rock, the way it blasted. Now again, some of this is over here. But the way this blasted, and they chisel on it, you can see some chisel marks. They're trying to make that a little deeper, a extra safety pocket. But me, I would want to be in the brick one.
Yes.
Not much to that. Now up ahead, and I will stop in this area, but look, this crew hits solid rock, floor to ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
So the area we're riding through would have been all solid rock. No need for stone work or brick work here because you've got this nice solid rock isn't going anywhere. I like to think that this might be where they start drilling because of the way that comes in. And I like to point out, like just this little area right here, look at all the drill marks and the different angles.
Just doing what they can.
Yes. Crossways, different angles up and down. It takes this crew working this end, it takes them 3 months to go through this section. I'm impressed with 3 months.
Yeah. Yes.
Long area of brick wall, they're running low. Takes time to quarry and carve the stone. Brick was being made on site, so instead of delaying construction, use the brick that they have in this area. Now someone measured out for us, gave us a mark. We have come in about 575 feet, 902 feet ahead of us. This would be the area where the two work crews meet, October 31st, 1849. And amazing for the time period and using hand tools, when they met here, they were only off center by between 1/2 and 1/4 of an inch.
Oh, ridiculous. That
Yes.
is just.
So I say they had a very good surveyor.
Yes.
Possibly more than one surveyor, but I'm sure the main surveyor has to go back and forth over the mountain
Yeah.
in keeping them on a line. And it's straight. They did a good job. Now the crew working this end, they would start down there, they would be digging toward us. They are mainly digging dirt and red Georgia clay. They will hit solid rock twice. So coming toward us, this is the second rock they encounter. So there's how wide it was and how tall it was. Big enough, but not what the other end is facing, right?
Yeah.
And less of an obstacle. And again, this is just what's left of the rock. It would have been out farther. This is the first rock this crew encounters. And some good drill marks in this rock. But look how far they come in.
Yeah. Before
they hit some solid rock. So to speak, they got the easier work. Although red Georgia clay is hard to dig. And here is one of our two larger safety pockets.
If I were in here, I'd want that one.
Yeah. Supposedly, of course, now they're smaller than we are today. Supposedly, you could get 5 people in this safety pocket. Now there was kind of some instructions or directions. The first person in was supposed to face this wall. Okay. And then the others would line up chest to back.
Okay.
And in that method, a couple of summers ago, we actually got 7 teenage girls in here lined up in that method. But I suspect with a train coming in, they're going to forget about any directions of how to line up. It's just going to be get in there. You're probably scrambling and shoving somebody else out.
Yes.
Natural air condition in the tunnel. July and August. Sometimes early September, it can be up to 20 degrees cooler inside the tunnel than it is outside. January and February, sometimes we get a little bit of a reverse, not exactly 20 degrees, but it can sometimes be a few degrees warmer in the tunnel than outside. Again, slightly over 1/4 of a mile in length.
It felt longer. I mean, just, if I was going to guess, I would have guessed half a mile.
And I'm not exact measurements, but I've been told that ground level, today ground level in the tunnel, we are 1,000 to 1,100 feet under the mountain.
Oh.
I tried to measure the tunnel opening. It's about 15 to 16 feet high. Marble plaque over both ends of the tunnel. Placed May the 9th, 1850, when the first trains rolled through the tunnel. They have a big ceremony here. Politicians give speeches. They have a brass band march through the tunnel, fire a cannon at the other end. The plaque has the name of the governor of Georgia, the main engineer, the foremans of the work crews, and the company that builds the railroad. everybody's name but the poor Irishman
Yeah.
that dig it out. And that's how it goes, right?
Yes,
Nebraska
yes.
gets the credit. Now the great locomotive chase, the General and the
Yeah.
Texas come through our tunnel. The Texas chasing the General. Union spies have come down. They've stolen the General at what is today Kennesaw, Georgia. They're wanting to wreck this railroad. This railroad is a main supply line for two Southern armies. Of course, they could not come down and bring the tools to tear up the track. Their plan is to burn railroad bridges. Between Resaca, Georgia, just below Dalton, between Resaca and Chattanooga to the north, there were 11 wooden bridges on the railroad. Andrews is the leader. They're known as Andrews Raiders. Their plan is to burn all 11 bridges, which would shut down the railroad for at least 9 months, possibly longer. Now, a couple of things happen. They get chased, which they did not count on, so that speeds things up, disrupts things. But the biggest disruption is the day of the raid. It is pouring down rain. It has rained 4 or 5 days before the raid, rained every day. So what do you think about those wooden bridges?
Not going to burn too good.
Not going to burn too easy. So the town of Resaca, there's a bridge on either side of the town, and those are the first 2 bridges. So they get to that first bridge on this side of Resaca. They're trying to burn it. It's not lighting. They're taking too much time. They hear the whistle of a train coming up the track behind them. That surprises them. The General was the last train going north that day. Not supposed to be any trains behind us. That must be someone giving chase. So they stop and they go to the next bridge. They try to burn it again, not burning. Again, they hear the whistle of the Texas coming up. And this time they see smoke from the smokestack. That means it's close. You can hear the whistle for miles. You could not see the smoke from the smokestack until it's pretty close to you. I've got to lock this gate back.
Oh, sure.
Y'all give me just a
Oh,
minute.
take your time.
So they abandoned the idea of burning the bridges, and it becomes the great locomotive chase, the Texas chasing the General. Did y'all get some of that story down at Kennesaw?
Yeah, you know, and I went probably a few years ago. You know,
me-
I read up on it, was kind of obsessed with it. You know,
Yeah.
and
To me, even in books, not a lot is said about the rain. Of course, them being chased is kind of the key, really disrupts things, and more credit is given to the men chasing for spoiling the raid than the wet bridges, which completely knock out their plans.
Yeah.
If they had been able to burn one bridge, that would have stopped the pursuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Yes.
To me, that plays more into it.
Yeah.
Now, as they come through our tunnels here, the General is running out of fuel. The locomotives burn wood and use water. So the General being chased, they've not been able to refuel. They are running out of fuel when they come through the tunnel. They will make it up to Ringgold, Georgia, 8 miles. They will make it 2 miles past the Ringgold Depot. All this time, as they're running out of fuel, they're going slower and slower. The Texas is getting closer and closer. And so 2 miles outside of Ringgold, the fuel is done. The General comes to a stop, and the Raiders abandon it. Counting Andrews, the leader, there are 21 Raiders. Now, a lot are captured that day. More are captured the second day. And within 12 days, they have all been captured. And as they were being captured, they're kept in Chattanooga at the city jail. The ones captured those first 2 days are already having trials, on trial for being spies and train thieves. For some reason, the last 8 that are captured, they're taken up to Knoxville for their trial. And while those 8 are in Knoxville, the other 13 Raiders in Chattanooga, now this is 3 weeks after the raid. The other Raiders that have already had their trial, they are placed on a southbound train leaving Chattanooga that is going to take them to a prison in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I think the Confederate authorities planned this out. The train that takes them to the prison in Atlanta is pulled by the General that they had stolen 3 weeks earlier. When they arrive in Atlanta, Andrews, the leader, he doesn't make it to the prison. He's separated from the others, taken to the city limits of Atlanta, and hung from a tree. 10 days later, 7 more of the Raiders are hung at the same spot Andrews was executed. During this time, the 8 from Knoxville rejoined the others, and they've all been sentenced to execute. But the date, all of a sudden, the date starts getting moved. So instead of waiting, they start to make plans. And one night, as dinner is being served, they rush the guards. They make it to the courtyard of the prison. 8 will make it over the wall, travel only at night, and rejoin the Union Army. 6 are recaptured in the courtyard. But months later, instead of being executed, they are exchanged in a prisoner swap. And when they are exchanged, they're taken to Washington, D.C., to the White House. They meet Lincoln, and even though their raid failed,
those guys still got the Medal of Honor, and they were some of the first people to do that. That was the conclusion of our tour. The last few seconds of that video got cut. How incredible was that? That really blew my mind. The video doesn't do it justice. If you're in this area, go down to Tunnel Hill and take that tour. $12. I can't say that enough. It was a great tour.